Welcome back to Rock Doc's Reading Room for another episode of my book, Rock Doc. We left off last week, summer of '69. I've got an apartment that I'm subletting for the summer in the East Village of New York, crazy place back then. I'm working as an operating room technician in a hospital, hoping that it'll help me get into medical school. I'm a pre-med student, frustrated drummer, and I realized that my upstairs neighbor are Rick Derringer and the McCoys, who are now starting to play with Johnny Winter. Okay, let's continue. So, Putty, my on and off again girlfriend, moved in with me for the summer. Rick and I hit it off, as did Putty and Liz. Rick was married, Liz was his wife, and Putty and Liz hit it off just like Rick and I did. And the four of us became buddies. The Derringers knew all kinds of interesting people in the New York underground scene, many of whom would visit unannounced. On any given day, anyone from a member of Andy Warhol's factory to Patti Smith or Todd Rundgren could be found sitting in their living room. So I got introduced to Andy Warhol's group. I got to go to the factory. I got to meet all kinds of crazy, strange people. And some of them would even come and visit me by the time the summer was over. All right, so it was an absolutely unbelievable, crazy summer. Okay. I formed a band for the summer with some friends from high school, and we played a few gigs at a small club in Long Island. I invited Rick to come along to one show. Hanging out with him and his friends had ignited the idea of quitting school to become a rock musician. Something I certainly thought about while I was in high school. I had bands. We had hoped to get record deals, and like most people in my generation that played music, we wanted to be rock stars. All right. Hadn't happened, obviously. I went to college, and here I was, between my sophomore and junior year. Okay. Where were we here? Okay. So my fantasy was that sometime in the future, Rick would be asked if he knew a good drummer, and he would think of me. He enjoyed our set, and on the way home, told me he was surprised by how well I played. And I was really happy to hear that because I thought I was pretty good. But until somebody real tells you that, you don't really know. All right. The summer ended. Great summer, unbelievable experiences, and hopefully I had made some new friends. I reluctantly returned to UVM that fall and began to muddle my way through the year's curriculum. But I focused more on bringing some of the energy of New York's music scene to Burlington. Partnering with two friends, I got the owner of the beautiful old Flynn Theater to agree to let us start booking concerts there. Anyone who has been to Burlington, I'm sure, knows the Flynn Theater. And it was basically a movie theater. They might have done one or two things, before we got there, but we were certainly the first rock concert that they ever allowed to be booked there. All right. So our first question was who to book. I wondered if I could persuade Rick to do our first gig. He was playing in Johnny Winter's band, as I said, and they were still doing theater-sized shows. This was a theater. I figured maybe I could make them interested. All right. Rick was comfortable with the idea, but he thought the band's manager would argue that playing at an unknown venue in a market no one cared about would be a lost opportunity. I tried to sweeten the deal, assuring Rick that they would get most of the money and we would party hardy and supply whatever the band needed, if you know what I mean. The band had a gig not far from the University of Vermont a few weeks later. Rick invited me there and said we could talk more. The show was my first time seeing Rick and Johnny on stage together. It was a great pairing. They traded guitar licks in a unique and incredibly dynamic way. They were the first I ever saw that went back to back. I think they started that. The name of the band was Johnny Winter and I think it was Rick and Johnny who started that, and many others did it after them. All right. After the show, we partied until the wee hours and had such a good time that as I was leaving, I jokingly said they should come back to Burlington with me. Now, really, we were all smashed. We had a great time. It was a joke. I did not expect anything to come from it. It was just a joke, something you say when you've had a great time. Okay. Moments later in the hotel lobby, Teddy Slatus, their road manager, confronted me. He looked upset, but I couldn't imagine what I had done wrong. Neil, we have a problem. Rick and Johnny want to go with you. He must be joking. The look on his face told me otherwise. I have to get back to the city, he continued, and I'm not going to leave them on their own. Rick wandered into the lobby and came to see what was going on. He insisted I would be the perfect person to look after them. Teddy was still unhappy and called Johnny on the house phone. When Johnny enthusiastically endorsed the idea, he had no choice but to agree. I became the babysitter for the weekend. I booked rooms at the Holiday Inn close to UVM, and the next day gave them a tour of the university in the area. That night, Johnny and Rick wanted to go out, and I suggested a club where some friends were playing. When we walked in, the room got silent. I don't know if they even knew who Johnny Winter was, but if you've seen Johnny, you know that people who have never seen him are going to make a big deal because he's this skinny as a rail, long white hair, red eyes albino. And so, the ones that knew, the ones that didn't, but everybody got silent. The crowd was dumbstruck. By the end of the night, Johnny and Rick were jamming with the band. Word spread quickly and the club filled to capacity while a large crowd spilled onto the street. It was light outside by the time we left. I dropped the guys back at the hotel and they flew back to the city on Sunday, man. The weekend was amazing. Just getting to hang out with them, spending time, casual time, eating meals, talking about whatever. Amazing, I was just a kid in college and a fan of rock and roll just like everybody else out there. And to have that experience, geez, it was really unbelievable. Okay. Rick and Johnny said it was one of the best weekends they had spent in years. Teddy and their flamboyant manager, Steve Paul, were pleased. And like I said, it had been an unbelievable experience for me. I realized I was good taking care of people. It was different from hanging out with friends and having a good time. Really taking care of someone meant not always giving them what they wanted. I had to be the designated driver, so to speak, and I took those responsibilities seriously. In essence, it was my earliest experience as a road manager, and I'm sure the way I handled myself that weekend had a lot to do with Rick offering me my first job in the music business. Right before summer vacation, Putty phoned me unexpectedly and said I had to call Rick. He had exciting news for me about Edgar Winter and his new band. I can't believe it, I thought. My chance at becoming a rock star is moments away. I dialed quickly. Rick answered. Hey, Rick, Putty told me to call. Neil, I'm glad it's you. You know Johnny Winter's brother Edgar? Well, he just formed a band. And I know you would be perfect. Now here, you gotta dig. I was ready for him to offer me the gig as drummer. And when he said you would be perfect as road manager, it was like, yeah, so road manager, that's not what you're supposed to say. Rick must have read my thoughts. I know you want to be the drummer, but the band is made up of old friends from Texas and Louisiana, and they've been waiting to play together for years. You'll make contacts, meet people. Who knows what will happen in the future? He was pushing me to take the job. I didn't want to be in school anymore, and my career as a drummer wasn't going anywhere. The problem was I had no idea what a job as a road manager meant. Rick assured me that Steve Paul, who was both Edgar and Johnny's Winter's manager, and Teddy Slatus, Johnny's road manager, would train me, and that I had more than enough smarts. With a bit of reluctance and a lot of excitement, I walked out of college and took the gig as road manager for Edgar Winter's White Trash. All right, so that's how it all started. Yeah, so let's see. I need to give you a little bit of a rock cut. All right, so I hope you enjoyed it. That's the end to chapter 2. Next week, we go on to chapter 3, and it's appropriately titled Another Brick in the Wall. And it will continue with my rock and roll experiences. So I hope you're enjoying this, and let me know. Appreciate the comments, and I'll see you again next week for another chapter of Neil Ratner Rock Doc's Reading Room.